Great. Okay, so we're happy to introduce Dr. Peter Lyster, who's our NIH Program Officer. Thank you so much for coming out.
Okay. No slides, but that looks just fine to me. That was the last meeting? Yes. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm amazed to come to San Diego and see that it's raining outside. So it's an interesting thing. Well, okay, I'm Peter Lyster, and I'm representing NIH. I think that the official title of my talk was NIH Perspective, and judging by the speed that Mike and Romy talked, I'd better make it a quick one. So I'm the science officer for D3R, and the program manager for it is actually Jana, and she's listening back at NIH. And so just to give you kind of a high-level view of NIH, some of you who know how NIH works top to bottom, well, you'll get it, but I want to bring everybody into the same page. So where at least the D3R part is funded under General Medical Sciences, so we're kind of like, if you will, the NSF of NIH. So I'm not necessarily going to talk about things that are relevant to proverbial disease and body parts institutes at NIH. But whatever you do, if you're talking about writing grants, do not forget about cancer, infectious diseases that are vitally interested in the sort of work that you all do here. But I'll focus mostly on NIGMS. One big picture that's occurred in the last, say, 10 years of my tenure at NIH, I mean, my part is I was in charge of the systems biology program for a while, involved in computing program management at NIH. There's a trend away from having initiatives that, say, focus on a specific project. And if you will, the trend at NIH, or at least my institution, is projects that face the peer review study sections as quickly as possible. So, for example, the early incarnation of D3R was funded under a specific program called an RFA. I'll try not to use too much of that kind of jargon. That said, we want a drug resource. Everybody compete. And it won't happen that way this time. It's more like future incarnations of projects, contracts, grants like this will have to come in under at least NIGMS generic kinds of funding opportunity announcements. There's the other acronym, FOA. Go straight to peer review, and the routine. They then go to our council of advisors who look down on us and make sure everything's transparent and whatnot, and then funding decisions are made, usually months after the review period. So kind of one thing I thought I'd then talk about are the kind of funding opportunity announcements that there are at NIH now. And I'll sort of start at the very broad and with the very specific, not necessarily focusing on sample or D3R, but just to give you the kind of flavors. And the reason why I don't have slides is if I put that up on the slide, you will be clinically depressed in 5 minutes at, trying to read all the little details. So I'll just sort of say that. So that there's this sort of high level, the proverbial R01, which is the research grant at NIH, maybe typically at average out at $250,000 a year direct cost. The focus is on innovative research projects. There is a specific R01 at NIGMS that actually sort of drills down a little bit and deals with focused tech development. You need to be kind of aware of that. I'll just say, occasionally I'll just say the numbers, but honestly, come to me afterwards to drill down. PAR 17045. And there's also a smaller kind of initiative called R21 that people use to do very focused exploratory projects. They're about $100,000 or so a year direct cost. And there's an initiative for that that actually requires no preliminary aims. So that's the sort of the highest level. One other trend that's happened at NIH in the last 5 years is the focus on finding stable, long-term funding for a research scientists program. It's called the MIRA program, meaning maximizing investigator research awards. Definitely Google that, MIRA, usually for some established scientists, or there's a special kind of MIRA that's for new investigators, early stage investigators. Keep that in mind. Another kind of program that we've had at NIH for some time, it used to be a program project, P01, once again an acronym. This has been replaced in the last few years by a kind of more extended program called Team Science Collaborative Program for Multidisciplinary Teams. The acronym for that, RM1, the program announcement, PAR 17340. So this is kind of a large kind of a project that has a big scientific goal within our institute, not cancer or specifically, but basically the sort of things that you all do here in terms of broadly applicable technologies. And I'll say more about that in a moment. But the idea of this RM1, the team science, is that it's a scientific project of interest to our institute, and that the teams are made of 3 or more people with diverse expertise. Okay, so now the last one I'll go to is a biomedical technology research resource, D3R, the proverbial P41. A lot of you here have heard of that. It's been used at NIH really for decades to develop research resources. The key thing about this research resource is that it has some component of technology R&D. The projects are called TR&D projects that do need some innovation related to the technology. And it also has a significant component of outreach. And I think that's kind of more, now we're sort of heading towards what you're doing here. An outreach activity is fairly broadly defined, could be a database, everything to teaching or a challenge for that matter that we're going to hear about today. And of course, last but not least, there's SBIR and STTR. So that's kind of the 5 minutes, hopefully only 5 minutes, big picture of NIGMS lately. I just wanted to speak to, on specifically, Jana was talking to me last week, and she's probably online. And I think for us, the 2 aspects of the original announcement, for at least for D3R, were getting the data out from behind the fence of industry and then making it useful. So that's one thing that, you know, my marching order here is, Peter, you know, is there still data to be got? You know, did the data get got? Well, obviously it did. I've seen it on the website. And, you know, what ways have people been found to show that it's actually useful? And in a way, that's really important, because you're going to have to, whoever writes future requests for funding to continue this kind of activity will have to basically do the same thing. That's really all I wanted to say. Oh, I wanted to get a photograph of what it's like to sit at the podium. so while you get the next, if anybody's got any questions, get ready to shoot, and I will get a photograph of you all. Thank you. Are we taking? Yeah, on me. Yeah, right. Right. I'm going to look kind of important. Just a minute. Let me get my game face on. Right. Oh. Right.
I'm just curious, what's total funding for NIGMS?
Next talk ready while you.
Thanks. It's on the order of billions, but to be honest, I haven't seen the exact number now. NIH is on the order of 30 billion. NIGMS, I remember at some point thinking that it was about 2 billion relative to, but that 30 billion, that goes clinical trials, it goes to R01s, it's kind of a fairly vast enterprise, that 30 billion. But the 2 billion that NIGMS is more like NSFE or basic biomedical research. Yes?
Is NIGMS being reorganized?
NIGMS has undergone a reorganization. It used to be that it's not a substantial one, actually. There used to be physics and cell biology, and then genetics, developmental biology, second component, and then technology and computing, third component, and then PVPC, pharmacology, physiology, and chemistry was another component. Currently, the physics and cell biology are dispersed, that's the change you're referring to probably, to a new division that includes biophysics, computing, and biomedical technologies. That's probably what you're referring to. But honestly, I'm part of that change, and I'm still sitting in my same desk. It's just people just have kind of permuted portfolios. I don't think it represents a change in the focus of science.
One more question, Stephen.
So, a piece of data on that question. Science Philanthropy Alliance recently published a study looking at 2016. Federal funding of life sciences R&D was 38 billion, and private philanthropy funding of life sciences R&D was 1.9 billion.
Yeah.
So those are the U.S. numbers.
Yeah, so that's an order of magnitude for you, right? Mm-hmm.
Those are the 2016 numbers.
And they probably added NSF into that calculus at some point. Yeah. Actually, if you want to get a big picture of funding, actual dollar amounts, and also who's doing what in the agencies, look up, it's an acronym, NITRD. Just Google NITRD President's Supplement. It's the President's OSTP components report every year on the President's budget, and it's got dollar figures predicted and done in the past for science. This is for IT research. So it doesn't cover everything here, but it will cover to some extent the IT research being done under this project.
So now my question,
yes.
I'm speaking earlier in the director of the back here in the United States. And my question concerns what if anything is likely to happen at the NIH concerning National Institutes of Health-wide funding for critical data infrastructure.
Oh, wow. I would say the best way to answer that, because I know I'm getting the hook, the best way to answer that is to look up, Google NIGMS, National Advisory General Medical Sciences, Friday meeting from about 3 weeks ago. John Lorsch who is my director, gave a really interesting big picture of where that's going, because there's definitely going to be a commons, if you will, a data commons. And what's really great is he, an institute director, is taking a vital interest in that. Honestly, I know I've got the hook, so I better go, but check that out on the internet. It's an NIH video cast. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter.